Good morning. My stream is not connecting to Facebook. Weird. What is going on? This has never happened to me before. Am I to proceed without being live on Facebook? That's really annoying. Hold on, I'm going to try to figure this out. All right, I guess I'll start the video and then I'll just keep trying throughout. For some reason, my stream is not connecting to Facebook, so that's really annoying. I am streaming on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. I am back for day 2 of rehashing the Boston City Council's process of passing the anti-picketing ordinance, the self-serving ordinance of Michelle Wu that was passed to ban a specific, very small group of people, including myself, from protesting in front of Michelle Wu's house. Again, my name is Catherine Vitale. I was a candidate for Boston City Council in 2023. Hopefully, I'll be a candidate again in 2025. I'm a homeschooling mom. I've been an activist for the past 3 years, and I am being relentlessly, selectively prosecuted by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in Boston. I started protesting Michelle Wu with a small group of other individuals who were unhappy about her policies, specifically her vaccine mandate policies when she first got into office in November of 2021. And we were protesting at City Hall. Our protests gained national media attention, and we embarrassed her on a national and sometimes international level. So she doesn't like us. And when a group, not us, but another group had planned for a protest rally at City Hall in January of 2022, Michelle Wu and City Council President Ed Flynn announced that City Hall would be closed for 2 weeks. They said that there was a spike in COVID cases, and they did that to avoid another big national embarrassment of a protest at City Hall. And so we said, a few of us said, all right, we're going to go protest in front of her house then if she's working from home. So we did that in early January 2022. And then it continued for like 1 to 3 days a week, if that. And there started being a huge like smear campaign in the media. Elected officials put out a statement condemning our protests, saying that we were racist and misogynistic and all of the things, white supremacists, anti-Asian, anti-LGBTQ, blah 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 blah. All of these things that were not true of a random group of individuals who took up issue with Michelle Wu's policies. We had many different races protesting with us, people of many different lifestyles, many different ethnicities. So the media was lying about us. So the protests kind of morphed over time from being about vaccine mandates to being about, stop lying about us. Michelle Wu, stop playing the victim. And then, then she started extortion on the restaurant owners in the North End. So we were protesting with them or, for them. And, just like every week, it was like a different issue with Michelle Wu in 2022. And it still continues to be. She is in, as far as I know, the worst mayor that the city's ever had. But I mean, I've only been involved in participating in politics for 4 or so years. So, I mean, it's probably been bad with other mayors too, but she's horrible. Never once did Michelle Wu or the city council ever try to talk to any of the protesters or resolve anything or see if anybody could come to some type of civil agreement somewhere. Nothing like that ever happened. She just immediately went to smearing us in the media, playing the victim, acting as if we were way worse than what we were. And then, 2 months into protest happening, she made a proposal for this picketing ordinance that says that you can't picket targeted residents between the hours of 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. So the Boston noise ordinance, I believe, is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. We usually were out there at 7 a.m. And the thing is that a lot of people don't know or understand is that the picketing ordinance has nothing to do with noise. So a lot of people might think that the picketing ordinance is reasonable. Like, yeah, I wouldn't want you making noise outside of my house at 7 a.m. either. You can start at 9 o'clock when everybody's awake for the day, whatever. But the picketing ordinance isn't about noise. We, according to the ordinance, should be cited just for standing there, even without a sign. So it is a piece of legislation that targets a specific group of people. Although this specific group of people is not of a protected class, our motion for selective prosecution got denied last week by the judge because 4 of us were arrested protesting in front of Michelle Wu's house, which the picketing ordinance is a civil infraction. So for violating the picketing ordinance, we should have been fined, but nobody was ever fined. Nobody ever got a fine. Instead, they just started arresting us. So June 29th, 2022, they arrested 4 of us. And then they, June 10th, 2022, Michelle Wu, somebody from her office, Dave Viterini, that works for Michelle Wu, made a list of 15 names, basically of like her most vocal critics. I'm number 2 on the list. And sent it over to the Boston police. And once the Boston police got that list, I'm sure there were other lists too at some point, but this is the one that we actually have physical evidence of that we got in a public records request. Once that list was sent, it seems they started taking like real police action against us and arresting us. So we are in a dictatorship. Michelle Wu is a dictator. And she does actually have the police arrest her political opponents, her political descendants, her dissidents, her people who are effective in opposing her policies. So if you thought that there was freedom here in Boston, you are wrong. You are not allowed to disagree with the political establishment in Boston. You will be jailed. So yeah, 4 of us got arrested. However, 2 of the people who got arrested were not on Michelle Wu's enemies list. So their cases got dismissed almost immediately. But myself and Shannon, we are on the list. So now, 2 years later, our case still remains open in West Roxbury District Court. We're supposed to be going to trial next month. I'm sure that date will be pushed up somehow, pushed further out, because that's what happens, right, in these corrupt courts. And so basically what I've been doing for the past couple days since we got the decision from the judge is I've been rehashing what happened in 2022. And right now I'm going through the public hearing that the Boston City Council held to discuss the passage of this ordinance before they actually passed it. So yesterday, I think I did like 2 hours of the hearing. And now I think I have like an hour and a half left. So I'm going to play through that and have some commentary. If you can, please interact with the video, comment, share the video. If you are watching on Twitter, because for some reason the Facebook stream isn't working today. If you are watching from Twitter, please go to YouTube and Rumble and subscribe to my channel called People's Press Media on both of those platforms. And or go to the link tree in my bio of whatever platform you're on and go follow me on the other platforms, because just like I can't be on Facebook today, you never know where I'm going to be streaming from. And I also, actually, let me add my little thing here. If you want to get involved or stay up to date on the things that are going on with us fighting back in Boston, you can go to boston.com, and there's some information on there. I need to get more information on there. And there's also forums where you can sign up to get updates when I do update the website. I am just myself doing these things, so please forgive me that it takes me some time to get content up, because I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm doing it mainly myself. But yeah, you can go to boston.com to stay updated on things. And today I'm going to be going over the last half hour of the city council hearing from March 14th, 2022. When they, put on a show like they are interested in hearing from the public, when it's really just to go through the process. They don't give a shit. But anyway, let's go.
Ms. Lab.
Thank you.
One thing I will also ask folks, I see we have folks still signed up on the 10.
How many hours do you work out to look like that? I don't work out. Yeah, so how often do you meet with a dietitian? Never. I don't go to the doctor anymore. But how do you stay so healthy? I learned the 13 foods that help or hurt the body. Practice mindfulness. I balance my hormones.
Minutes. You can email us and we'll put the entirety of your commentary on the record. But we have so many people signed up, we have to keep it to the 2 minutes. So I'm sorry that we have to end it there, Ms. Lev.
Thank you.
One thing I will also ask folks, I see we have folks still signed up on the attendee list with one name, just their first name. If you can please make sure that your full name is there so that we can, as you signed up to testify, so when you sent in a name to testify as, please make sure the name is the name that you have there fully, so that we can call you up. With that, Shayna Catone, you have 2 minutes from when you unmute and in our setup. But the floor is yours. Are you there, Ms. Catone?
There we go. Sorry. So
No
the
worries.
reason that, thank you for having me. The reason that we ended up going to the mayor's house, just for context and historical posterity, is that the mayor closed City Hall. Okay. And when you close City Hall and you don't allow constituents to air their grievances, they're going to go and they're going to make their grievances heard. I do question the 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. timeframe. As the previous panelist said, the protesting tends to take place between 7:30 to 8:30, which is when the mayor leaves. Okay, so that is targeted protesting. It's not an all-day event. It is specifically to try and engage the mayor, make our voices be heard, which he repeatedly and consistently has refused to do. Hearing the city councilors speak, I've heard the term a lot. Feelings are not facts, and rights are not negotiable. Our rights to constitutionally demonstrate are not something that should be negotiated or legislated through ordinance. And the fact that a sunset clause is even being considered shows that this ordinance is being specifically written for Mayor Wu and for the politicians that have been protested. The protests have been called harassing, sexist, racist, anti-Semitic. None of this has any fact to support it. If that were the case, there would be police reports that support these allegations. If there are any, I would like those to be entered into the record to support those allegations. And also any video, if there's anything to support that. And this seems to be a case of NIMBY, not in my backyard. Why don't we address the real noise issues that are going on in the neighborhoods? Loud parties, music, the things that constituents complain about thousands upon thousands of times a year. Councillor Flynn referred to some protests over the years as professional. These aren't professional protests, Mr. Flynn. You're right. These are grassroots protesters who are out there making their voices heard. We're a diverse range of protesters who are airing our grievances. We are men, women of all races, religions, and sexual orientations. And I personally take umbrage being put in a box and being mischaracterized and mislabeled. And as far as it goes, Councillor Arroyo, you said that you're comfortable engaging with constituents, yet you continue to only hold Zoom hearings. You said it's convenient and encourages more participation. Well, if City Hall is going to do a hybrid, why don't we do a hybrid hearing with in-person and also Zoom?
Thank you, Ms. Katam.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Karina.
Okay.
Well, it's only the weight of the nation.
I'm going to pause it for a second anyway, just to comment on Shayna's testimony. So that was Shayna Cotone. She was a Boston police sergeant of 14 years. She was honored and praised for being a hero, lifesaver at the Boston Marathon bombing. And she's been written about in books. She's been in documentaries, praised over the years. And she's been a Boston police officer for 14 years. She was a sergeant, was her last rank. And she almost immediately, once the protests started, since she was the one who established the group, Boston First Responders United, that was basically the organization of it started out being the first responders of Boston, but ended up being like the city workers in general of Boston, who didn't want to take the vaccine and obviously didn't want to lose their jobs for not taking the vaccine. And so she was like the leader or the president or whatever chair of that organization. And almost immediately, once that first big City Hall protest happened, December 20th, 2021, they started building internal affairs cases against her. So this is actually, ironically enough, somebody who did have random like disciplinary reports on their record as a police officer a long time ago, years ago, before being promoted to sergeant. And so I'm pretty sure that anytime somebody's promoted, like any of their internal affairs cases have to be like assessed and dealt with before they could be promoted, something like that. So her cases were assessed and dealt with, and they still chose to promote her. Right. And I mean, we've all seen our fair share of corrupt police, especially within the Boston Police Department, because I mean, we're watching it play out right now in the Karen Reed case, right? And we watched it in the Trial 4 documentary with Sean Ellis and the murder of John Mulligan, to which Sean Ellis was not responsible, but did 20 years in prison for. And like I say all the time, Karen Reed's case is not unique. Sean Ellis's case is not unique. Many people actually do time in prison for crimes that they did not commit. And there was even, I want to say, like a Boston Globe reporter on Trial 4 that said, like, the Boston police couldn't solve a crime if the suspect was standing right in front of them. Like, every investigation they do, they rely on, like, tips from informants. Like, they don't even properly perform investigations. Again, we're watching it play out live in the Karen Reed trial right now. They're incompetent. And I mean, I would possibly even go so far as to say this might be the case for many police departments. And I'm somebody who comes from the side of supporting the police, right? And, I realized quite some time ago that it's not good to blindly support anything. First of all, you always need to do your due diligence and your research and figure things out for yourself and think for yourself before just supporting somebody because that's what your like end of the political spectrum supports, or that's what your people support, or whatever. And it's not that I don't support the police. Anybody who puts their life on the line to do a job like something where they are actually in it for the right reasons, and something where they are actually responding to situations where they're putting themselves in danger, then yeah, I have nothing but respect and honor for a person who puts their life on the line for somebody else's benefit, basically. And of course I support those types of people, but a lot of them are corrupt. A lot of them don't know what they're doing. A lot of them are poorly trained, and that's just facts. So anyway, Shana Catone, seemingly to me, is an honest person of integrity who stood her ground and said, I'm not going to take this job, and you're not going to take my job for it either. And you're not going to do that to anybody else. And so she built this organization of first responders and city workers. And almost immediately when that big first protest happened in December, and it went national on national news, they started building an internal affairs case on her. And I want to say the first week in January of 2022, she got suspended. She was on administrative leave or something. So suspended with pay while investigations were going on, right? And then they just kept adding cases, right? So I think she ended up with 6 to 8 internal affairs cases. I think at one point a couple of them were dropped off because they were pointless or something. But I think she ended with 6 internal affairs cases, and she was on administrative leave, so being paid her salary for, I want to say 14 months. And then they finally fired her 14 months later. So they paid her for 14 months, all those taxpayer dollars. And she's not the only one either. There were 3 of them who were standing their ground and doing the right thing. And they were on administrative leave for over a year and then got fired. On the same day, they got fired too. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So that was Shana Catone putting in her 2 cents about the Picketing Ordinance, and I obviously agree with everything she said. And like I said yesterday, notice how I think there's maybe hearing that actually spoke in support of the ordinance. Those were just two of them. The first two, I mean, right now, I think you might have seen the one before Shayna, but there were two of them before Shayna, and they were the very two first members of the public that spoke. Which, if you pay attention to these stupid virtual hearings that the government, at least the Massachusetts government, holds, they usually put supporters of their legislation or whatever the topic is first. They let them go first. And then by the time people actually give any like meaningful, real opposition to it, people have left, and people got tired. People didn't want to sit here for hours, and people don't hear the better testimonies that come at the end. That's why they like these virtual hearings, so that they can organize who gets to speak and when, and that nothing is playing out in front of the public's eye. It's all happening behind the screen, so they're kicking people out and they're muting people and all of that. That's why they do the virtual hearings. But back to the hearing.
Yes, hello, 1 second. Sorry, I don't know if I can work out the video, but thank you for having me also. I would like to start with a quote. I felt like no one in government was even acknowledging real life, much less trying to help us. This is a quote from Michelle Wu in 2012. Funny she should say that, because in 2022, she is the government, not even acknowledging real life, much less trying to help us. That's how I feel. Mayor Wu has had months to sit down with the people she claims to represent, people who have been outside of her home exactly for the reason that Shana just mentioned, which was that she closed the city hall. She has dodged real questions, real discourse. She's essentially been gaslighting dissenting voices. She dog whistles the press to libel protesters of all backgrounds as anything but what they've been, which is advocates for human rights. Wu has the audacity to imply that protesters in front of her house speak against her as a person of color. What a crock of horse manure, excuse my language. At least half of the people in front of her house are minority women, including immigrants, myself included. She's not doing her job. That's why people are in front of her house. And you as Boston City Council need to put to make a case of that situation, because you guys should be putting pressure on her to do her job well. She might be new in this. She may not have all the experiences that you guys have, maybe cumulatively. So why don't you actually point out to her that she needs to maybe address this issue, not by ordinances that are completely encroaching on people's rights, but rather maybe, after the first protest or second or third or fourth, perhaps she should have just sit down people and talk to them. Being marginalized, a community is already marginalized, being marginalized even further. Minority communities have been treated as second-class citizens, and it's extremely upsetting to live in a society like this. So all of us who are coming to the protest, and I've been there many times, which, by the way, I started with one police officer in front of Mayor Wu's house. Now it's up to 17 police officers, 2 paddy wagons. God knows how much money is being wasted, taxpayers' money. It's really upsetting to see that mayor, who claims to be transparent and progressive, is not even doing her basic job, which is hearing her constituents. So to the point of 9 a.m., who would be speaking to at 9 a.m. if Mayor Wu is in her office and she's not taking meetings with us? Who would exactly we be addressing at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m.? Right? And by the way, who's harassing whom? She's literally been involved in abusing children. The children are still masked in Boston.
I'm gonna stop it there just so that we can be clear on the when I talked about personal attacks, that would be, the accusations of abuse of children would be one of those.
First of all, you should not be interrupting my testimony.
I do thank you. So that's the 2 minutes there. I just want to be clear too on when we talk about City Hall being closed. City Hall has been open by appointments, but has certainly been open throughout this time. Just so that we have that on the record as well.
So strike one. If you've ever participated in a governmental hearing, at least one in Massachusetts, specifically one in Boston, you know that a hearing is not a back and forth. Okay. The back and forth only happens with the panels of experts and the legislators. The members of the public don't ever get a back and forth unless somebody like Ricardo Arroyo wants to argue with them. That's the only time that there's a back and forth, when the people running the show are offended and feel the need to step in and say something or stick up for somebody. It's funny how he starts off with, we're not going to have any personal attacks. First of all, like Karina said, you're not supposed to interrupt testimony. You gave a person 2 minutes. They're supposed to have 2 minutes to speak. You're not supposed to do or say anything about it. They can say whatever they want, right? I often tell people, you can go to a hearing and speak about something that has nothing to do with the topic, just to be heard on record about whatever you want to be heard about. Maybe the hearing about the issue that you're wanting to talk about isn't at a time that you can be there. So just go to any hearing and be heard if that's what you want to do. Video yourself and post it online, just so the world can't say that you never spoke up and you never said something, right? So, and it happens all the time. People speak at hearings and meetings where the topic is not what they want to talk about, and then they talk about it anyway because their goal is to raise awareness on an issue, right? And so he's not supposed to chime in or cut anybody off or do any of that. And strike one, there will be many throughout the rest of this hearing, because pretty much everybody else after this point is in opposition of the ordinance. And so you're not supposed to cut her off. And he's like policing the content of her speech. Oh, funny thing. And he's saying that it's a personal attack on her, when literally Karina, who's speaking, is on Michelle Wu's enemies list. Literally one of the people who's being personally attacked by Michelle Wu. Isn't that ironic?
I have Nicole Oliva next, and then I believe David rolled after her. Thank you, Nicole. The floor is yours, and I'll reset the timer and go from there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. The floor is yours.
I just wanted to make sure you called Nicole Oliva, right? Because it kind of did something weird.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just to quickly say, just echoing the last two speakers, that I'm opposed to the ordinance. I feel that it's a violation of our First Amendment right. And as it's been pointed out, that we can go and protest in front of City Hall, but nobody's there. So nobody's going to listen to what people have to say. So unless you're going to be there every day, then people need to continue to go to where the elected officials are, and that is their home. So Mayor Wu wants to hide behind a wall of police. She wants to hide and put in an ordinance that, allows her to not be held accountable for her actions. And people are upset. She's not even been in office for a year yet, and she's already turned the city into more of a divisive nightmare. And that's what this ordinance is going to continue to, if it goes into effect, it's going to continue to divide the city. And if she's not going to do her job properly, then maybe she shouldn't have her job as mayor. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Home Depot hates when you do this, but they can't stop you. This new $80 high printing power of a military-grade
Resetting the alarm. Who have been here already? No. Who is here, Nicole? Who? I'm trying to figure out who's next on the list who's actually up.
Hi, Counselor, it's Christine. David Rold is next, but I don't see him.
I see we have Catherine Vitale, I think is also on the list, but I don't know if there's a Catherine Vitale in the meeting room, in the attendees room.
I see.
It might just be under Catherine. Sorry.
Catherine.
There we go. Catherine Vitale, the floor is yours. And I hope I pronounced your last name right. I'm sorry if I didn't.
You did, actually. Okay, and David Rold is on the Zoom too, by the way.
I see his name.
Since December 20th, many constituents have tried to speak to the mayor about her unconstitutional mandates and dictatorial tendencies that are negatively affecting us, our children, and small businesses of Boston. She walks by like we don't exist, calls us trolls on the internet, and refuses to engage us. She tells the media we are hateful and perpetuates lies about us being racist and sexist. And to that, I will state for the record that our displeasure with Mayor Wu has nothing to do with her race or gender, but everything to do with her policies. It is her role to represent all constituents, and if she's unable to do so, she is unfit for the job. Penguin Pizza and Copley Library. She addresses us subliminally, but won't talk to us. The judge, and not just the ones who voted for you. If you think that a small group of protesters are the only ones unhappy with your policies, you're wrong. We're just the only ones with the time and courage to speak up for thousands of people who are unhappy with this administration. They'd just like to say to every member of the public listening to this, it is our moral obligation to disobey unjust laws. When elected, to come together and remove them from office. It is our responsibility to make sure that they are upholding the Constitution, and if they're not, they have to go. That's all.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you for staying to time. David Roldy or Roldy, please do correct me on the last name. Names are important, but
can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are, sir.
This one at
Sorry.
the end.
My last name is Rold. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak, but I wish the hearing were in person. It's democracy is better in person, and there's no health emergency now. So I hear you all that you think that the proposed ordinance would be legal, but I think you're wrong. The proposed ordinance is not content neutral. The ordinance says, quote, that it would prohibit, quote, picketing, protesting, or demonstrating with or without signs that is specifically directed toward a particular residence or one or more occupants of the residence, unquote. There's nothing in the proposed ordinance about noise or disruption or the physical character or activity of the gathering. People would still be permitted to gather outside someone's house for any other reason that is not related to protesting against the occupants of the house. The ordinance is specifically directed against the content of the gathering, that the speech or thought is considered to be protest or demonstration or picketing. You can't regulate the content of speech. You can't say that it's okay to gather on a street or in front of someone's house as long as it is not a protest against someone who lives there. The proposed ordinance specifically states that it would not prohibit picketing in residential areas or marches that pass through residential areas. The prohibited action is only distinguished by the content of the speech. If enacted, this ordinance would not only be illegal, it would immediately be discriminatory, as many of the people who have been protesting at the mayor's house are Black people, Latinos, Asian people, women, and working class people standing up for their rights. If you adopt this ordinance, the protesters will not comply, and you will be faced with the successful lawsuit against the ordinance.
Thank you.
Lastly, you're welcome.
So you can finish your last thought.
Yeah, COVID is a hoax. So-called vaccines are poison. Vaccine passports, digital IDs, digital.
I wish we didn't tell you you can finish your last thought. Thank you, sir. Who's next? We have Shannon London. If she's here.
Council, we have a Shannon, but her name is spelt a little differently. It may be her, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm sorry.
Okay, if that is you, if you are the correct Shannon, if you don't mind just renaming your Zoom so that
Ricardo Arroyo does suck, and that is hilarious. I love that part. That's like my favorite part of the whole thing. And again, Ricardo Arroyo sucks, and he shouldn't talk to constituents that way. Yeah, and I just want to say, you guys, if you can, please share this video out, because for some reason the live stream isn't connecting to Facebook. So I'm not getting it nearly as many views as I usually am, which is fine because it will get the views eventually. But my main spot for live streaming is Facebook, and it's not connecting. So right now I'm only on Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. So if you can, please share the video out to anybody who might be interested or might also help sharing it and posting it. And please interact in the comments and react to the video and all of that. Thank you.
we know. Is Peter Foley present?
He is not.
Okay. Is Anna Lindgren present?
She is not.
Is Padma Scott present?
Is a banana a metabolism booster or a killer? I just heard the truth from this guy and my mind was blown.
This is a metabolism killer. This
Padma, you have 2 minutes once you begin. Padma Scott. I see that we have elevated you to panelist. Padma, if you can unmute if you are there. There we are.
How y'all doing? Thank you for your time. My name is Padma Scott. I'm one of the protesters, and the reason that we have been out in front of Mayor Wu's house is because we have done all the phone calls, the emails, all the things that you say we should do. We've gone to City Hall. Ed Flynn promised us 20 minutes of his time, and he has still yet to give us that. He told us that we had to go outside in the cold and the freezing weather. That was the only way that he would speak to us. We still need those 20 minutes we were promised. This ordinance is unconstitutional. It is infringing on our First Amendment rights, okay? We are regular people. I am a mother. I have a son in Boston Public Schools. Most of us are mothers and fathers. We are not threatening people. There are every day, daily, about 16 cops out in front. If we had actually threatened the mayor, we would have been arrested. So please stop lying about us. Please stop calling us racist. Mayor Flynn, Ed Flynn also suggested using a stay-away order against us, which would further criminalize us. We are already marginalized people. I'm African-American and I'm a woman and I'm marginalized. I'm also did not get the experimental COVID shot, so I'm also being marginalized as an unvaccinated person. The mayor does not have a right to do this. She is a public servant. She needs to answer to we the people. We also, it's retaliatory because this ordinance is directed specifically at us. Why have we been doing it at 7 a.m.? Because some of us who have not been fired, we still have jobs. We have to feed our families as well. So we have to be there early before she leaves to work. Okay? We are sorry about the neighbors. This is not directed at them. If she would have answered us, we would not have to be there. Okay? You do not get to decide when we get to exercise our First Amendment rights. We need to be heard. She doesn't listen to us. She will not speak to us. We will not be oppressed. We, the people, pay all of your salaries. All of you city councilors are public servants. You answer to us. And when are you going to end this emergency? Why is it that the children of Boston public schools are still being forced to wear masks when you all do not wear masks at your parties? It is disgusting. We stand for the children of Boston. We stand for children. Unmask the children. When are you going to do it? When you need to lift all COVID-19 restrictions. You know that it's a fraud because you don't follow it. How dare you? I have the right to be angry. We have the moral authority and we have the legal authority. And you can try to pass whatever unconstitutional stuff you want, but you're just storing up more wrath.
Thank you, Padma. We appreciate you. Anzi Kangas, and I hope I pronounced that last name right. Please do correct me if it's incorrect. Names are important.
Yes, names are important. So good morning. My name is Anzi Kangas. And I would first like to address that this meeting is on Zoom. As I am a single mom with 2 children, I have dealt with school being at home on Zoom and my children going to school hybrid. So I don't understand how you guys are not able to do a hybrid meeting, seen as kids with hundreds of kids in school are able to do that. This is not inclusive as everybody is not able to attend as they choose. As for the docket 312, I personally think that this is a waste of time as the mayor is trying to ignore her constituents. The mayor has a job and her job is to unite my capital city. All she has done is divide my city. I am not a Boston resident. I'm a Massachusetts resident. I should not be dealing with this today. It is against our rights to not be able to go to who has the power to change the problems we have. Instead of Michelle Wu doing something productive with her time, like setting up proper COVID exemptions as to people with health or religious reasons, she is allowed to do this instead. As her guidelines segregate and discriminate against people for health and religious reasons, not race reasons, for not getting vaccinated or wearing masks. I would like to ask you all to vote no on this as it is not productive. Michelle Wu should be doing productive things with her time. I don't think she understands that this state was built on religious and medical freedoms that we should all have. She has come into my house to tell me what is safe and healthy for my children. I cannot take my children to Boston to go to museums, to libraries because of her mandates. I have had to tell my child that no, we can't eat in our city because we are not allowed to. It is not okay that I have to tell my child that we can't eat in Boston, as I am a Massachusetts resident and I should be allowed to go to my capital city in order to see my history and to teach my children. And because of Mayor Wu, I am not allowed to because she discriminates against me. Thank you for you guys listening, and I hope that you make the right decision and vote no on this.
Thank you for being timely. Appreciate you sticking to your 2 minutes. Jacqueline Pelletier. Thank you. I see you. So as soon as you begin, we'll start your 2 minutes. I'm sorry, if you can unmute, and then your time has not started till you begin.
Okay, thank you. Hi. I'm here to submit my public comment for the record in opposition of docket number 312 as well. I think adding restrictions on protests violates Americans' First Amendment protections. These protections are under First Amendment. They exist for 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. These talking about protests, not talking about harassment, not talking about vandalism or harming another person at all, just talking about what protests actually are. The First Amendment rights of the American people may not be infringed upon. Protest in any public place at any time of day is a protected expression. The Boston City Council members and Mayor Wu took an oath to uphold and support the Constitution. And I'm reminding you all that the addition of an overbroad statute would be a violation of that oath. The mayor's letter calling for this meeting was evasive, in my opinion, and government buildings have been closed. Public servants work from home when they do work, and that's why certain residences have been the target of these protests. Our own state house in Massachusetts was closed longer than any other state house in the country. And we, the people, we're unable to tolerate any more limitation of our rights. Thank you for keeping that in mind today. I also hope that you can vote no, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pelletier, and thank you. I mean,
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like I was losing interest in the things I love. Then I...
Councilor Arroyo, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
it had to happen at least once. I was thanking Ms. Pelletier for staying within her 2-minute window. It's only happened twice, and so I'm grateful that it did. I don't see Jeff Boretti. Is Jeff Boretti here?
He's not.
And then Mr. Hickey is also not here?
No, he is not.
Is Esther Hawkins here? I see
Yeah.
Esther Hawkins. Yes, so the floor is yours, Esther.
Hi, thank you so much for having this meeting and letting us speak our minds about this. I would just like to ask a question. Let's bring the context of these protests up. Why are we protesting? Yes, I've called, I've emailed, but why are we protesting? Because our authorities are not listening. And these protests are a byproduct of policies. And these policies are tyrannical. The policies of Mayor Wu are ones that never in my lifetime have I seen in a mayor of Boston. Her policies have disrupted, interrupted, and targeted our lives. I'm a mother of 5 children. And how do I explain to my children that we have to show a vaccine passport to go into Boston? We've studied history and we've seen, my own children know that this sounds like Nazi Germany. This sounds like Hitler. We've studied history enough to know that what she has brought in as policy or mandated is completely tyrannical. And if someone will not meet with us in person, will not return our phone calls or emails, we have no place left to go. And I do understand a noise ordinance, and I would ask the Boston police to measure the noise ordinance. And I do believe it should be followed. I have 5 children, and peace and quiet is important. So we should be following the noise decibels. But it is a part of a free country. There will be stress. There will be tears for our children as leaders. I grew up in the house of a leader, and we were targeted many times. But you know what that did? As a child and as I grew up, it made me stronger. And it made me and gave me the voice that I have today. So yes, there may be some hindrances to Mayor Wu and her children, but that is part of being in leadership. And I would like it to go on record that I believe this ordinance should not be in effect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. The next name that I see that is present, just a quick one over for Dolores McGee and Charlie Adams. If you are in the chat, please put your name as those if you are here and are going by one. But I see Cynthia Maloney is here, and so I'd like to give Cynthia Maloney her 2 minutes to speak. So Cynthia Maloney, once you are ready, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm a lifetime Boston area resident. I grew up in Watertown. I'm still here. I've been in and out of Boston my whole life. When people ask me where I live, I say Boston, even though it's Watertown, because that's how close I am to Boston. And that's how I feel about Boston. I have been here throughout all these mayors, John Collins, Kevin White, Ray Flynn, Mayor Menino, Marty Walsh, and I have never, they all had their problems. They were not saints by any stretch of the imagination, but they all had one thing in common. They all loved Boston. They all loved Boston, and they all loved the Boston people, regardless of their stance. This woman, Mayor Wu, does not love Boston. She does not listen to the people. She hasn't listened to the people. She's kept us out of City Hall. She's kept us out of the State House. She's keeping us out of restaurants. She's making kids get a poison.
Who's going to go ahead and do that. Cynthia, you can continue. You still got a minute. I just want to make sure we're clear just on the two things. No profanity, no personal call outs. Everything else.
So he says, I'm just going to go ahead and do that, which is hilarious because he muted and I think kicked out the very person who he told face to face that he wasn't going to be muting and booting anybody. And he cut off Cynthia because she was off topic. Again, this is a public hearing. You are here to hear us. Okay. And if somebody wants to speak off topic, they have every right to speak off topic. You are not allowed to police people's speech. That's just the fucking facts of the case. And he's disgusting. He's disgusting. And this is exactly why people should be pushing back on virtual meetings everywhere, because they can do shit like this. They can mute people. They can interrupt people. They can kick people out. They can block people. And there's nothing that we can do about it because we're virtual. And that's what he just did here. Policing Cynthia's speech.
This is fine.
It's an experimental shot. This is true. How is this not a thing? Like, this is our problem. This is being mandated on our bodies. We're called racist because we don't want to put poison in our bodies. How is this, this is ridiculous. Free speech is free speech. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary to get rid of the government that is overreaching. This is what we're at right now. You people are overreaching. It's ridiculous how far you've overreached. You've taken off. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane how bad this is getting. And you need to listen to us.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Councilor Arroyo, I have a quick question for you as the chair. Do you mind?
Yes. What is the question? The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. So I'm under the understanding that this particular public testimony is in regards to specifically the ordinance that's at hand, right? So I'm listening in to folks talking about their opposition to the ordinance. And what I'm beginning to hear is a lot of other, issues as it relates to the why we even are having this discussion. So I just want to be really super specific. Rest of the testimonies are going to be about, because I'm listening in regards to the ordinance, but I'm hearing a lot of other stuff. So I just want to understand what I'm engaging in.
And so basically, public comment is the public's. And so I'm hoping that the 2 minutes are focused on this particular ordinance. But as long as there's no profanity, as long as there's no personal attacks or call outs, folks are happy to, if they want to use those 2 minutes to discuss something else, then I guess that's what they're going to do. But I would prefer that it be about this ordinance. Frankly, as long as it's not profane, as long as it's not personal attacks or call outs, you are happy to use your 2 minutes to speak about what it may be that you would like to share with us. I don't know who is now here. Is it Harley Sentner?
This game
you're not ready for it.
Hi, yes.
Yes, Harley, the floor is yours.
Okay, hi, thank you. So I appreciate, the opportunity to speak to the public and to all the counselors here. I just want to start off by saying that I am personally opposed to this ordinance. I think it is a infringement on our First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. I also heard some statements by the counselors that I wanted to correct, in that some of the remarks were anti-Semitic or racist. And, as someone of Jewish background, I'm completely confused by this remark because it's completely not based on facts. I could never imagine that. And we're an incredibly diverse amount of people, and we're not united necessarily by skin color or ethnic background, but appreciation for freedom and civil rights. And that's where we're at right now. And I just want to say in brief that the reason that people are out there protesting for this is because they have not been able to express themselves and have the leadership, the civil leadership in the city, hear them out truly. So that's where they're from. That's where they're coming from. And they need to have their voices heard, and they're not threatening anyone. There's no evidence for that. And no, I'm going to oppose this ordinance, and I would hope that you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harley, for your time and for sticking on time. Thank you for that. That is a model of what we're seeking, is just public comment, clear, to the point. Who is next that we have in line? It should be, just trying to follow as we go through. Lots of folks signed up. Not all of them are here, for folks that are trying to figure out what's happening now.
Also,
is Kate,
when people give testimony in public meetings and hearings and all that, no matter where you are, can you please stop thanking these tyrants for their time or thanking them for holding hearings and meetings? It's literally their job. You elected them to do what they're doing. They don't need to be thanked for it because they're not taking your opinion into consideration. They're not utilizing a hearing the way that it's supposed to be utilized. They are doing it as a motion that they have to go through to get legislation passed. That's all they're using it for. None of your opinions are being taken into consideration. Stop thanking these people. They deserve to be thanked for nothing. They deserve to be in jail because they're all human rights violators. Stop thanking them.
Tisdale here?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I also would like to say I wish this hearing was in person and not on Zoom. And I'm addressing my testimony to Mayor Wu, along with the city councilors. My name is Kate Tisdale. As a taxpaying resident of Boston, I am extremely alarmed at your authoritarian and self-serving impulse to restrict the freedom of speech of Bostonians. As you know, the First Amendment to our Constitution protects the freedom of speech and the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. When you restrict people's God-given right to free speech, you strike at the central nervous system of the United States. This ordinance that you have sponsored is an attempt to limit people's free speech and expression for the convenience of your family. This is without precedent in Boston. We Bostonians have been some of the most compliant and highly COVID vaccinated residents in all of America. When you took office in November 2021, you rewarded the people who entrusted you with the privilege of serving as their mayor by punishing them with divisive and discriminatory mandates. Sadly, your mandates have resulted in devastating consequences to many of your constituents. I find it staggering that you are embroiled in a legal battle with our first responders, the very people who were heroes of the pandemic just months ago. If you insist on remaining ardently committed to your position with regard to these COVID mandates, then you must be prepared to take the heat that comes your way as a result. It is cowardly of you or any administration to limit hours of free speech simply because you find the speech to be inconvenient. Your mandates are grossly inconvenient and far more damaging to our children and families than the inconvenience of your being awakened at 7 a.m. Instead of vilifying the people protesting, I recommend you model inclusive, empowering politics, your words, Mayor Wu, and sit down and listen to them. I strongly oppose the passing of this new ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now I'm gonna go down the list. We're gonna do this one at a time. Candace, Jessica Abu, is she here?
I do not see her name, Mr. Chair, no.
Denise Salas?
No.
Andrea Nardini?
I do not see her, no.
Margaret McKenna?
No.
I'm probably going to mispronounce this, so I apologize. Julie Ilias?
Yes, I had just promoted her as panelist.
Thank you. Julie, the floor is yours.
Hello, I just want to say that this is a violation of our First Amendment rights, and if it goes through, we will sue. Enough is enough. You want a reasonable compromise, want to know why this is so different. Never seen this before. When in the history of Boston has the mayor violated human rights? Never is it okay to violate our human rights. This administration does not allow for the ability for us to agree to disagree when they imposed tyrannical medical apartheid on the birthplace of freedom, Boston, beginning on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, after receiving his legacy award nonetheless. What this ordinance is really about is targeting a group of concerned citizens who will not allow the government to violate their God-given basic human rights of bodily autonomy, a right given by God and protected by the Constitution. What options do we have when elected officials refuse to hear our grievances and write us off as a small group of trolls who she will not answer 2 questions from or even look us in the eye? She has mocked and muted us on Twitter, spread lies about us, calling us racist and sexist, which is simply not true, on the radio, in the news, ignores meeting requests from us, ignores our concerns on IG Live. When you close the State House and City Hall on a whim as she please and gaslight us, where can we go? Those who criticize her discriminatory, unjust, unsafe, unscientific views are seen as second-class minorities. She has dehumanized us, insulted us, mocked us, refuses to hear our concerns. No one has the right to dictate medical decisions for people who want to live, work, or visit Boston. No one has that right besides the individual. With many Boston firemen in attendance, she refused to let us in or talk to us. Marty Walsh came out to hear our grievances. We're still waiting for Michelle Wu to hear us out. Day after day, she walks by us to her luxury SUV with a smirk on her face, getting sick pleasure out of torturing us and ruining our lives. This ordinance is another slap in the face from the mayor to us after she...
Thank you, Julie. Who do we have up next? 1 second, let me just reset that. All right. Who do we have next? Is Ms. Gonzalez here?
No.
And Candace, can we just bring them in when I call them, please?
Yes.
Is Beth Hoffman here? I see Beth Hoffman is here. I will start the clock when you are ready to begin.
There we go.
Oh, there's
Sorry about that.
If you want, we can come back to you. We're not gonna...
No, it's okay. For some reason, my audio keeps going back up.
Oh, you're good now. You're good now. It's not.
Yeah, I thought so. Thank you. This docket item is an attempt to compromise free speech. Haven't we all been awakened at 7 or 8 a.m. by utility workers? This seems to be cherry picking. It is an abuse of power to change aspects of an ordinance simply out of convenience for disagreeing with what protesters are objecting to, or even the strategic time of day they're choosing to protest. This would harm free speech and democracy. Interesting that the proposed ordinance only covers the time when Mayor Wu leaves for work or returns from work,
and it masquerades as a concern for her neighbors. The protests are directed to Mayor Wu's actions and her decisions being made for citizens. Mayor Wu needs to hear and engage with the citizens' grievances. To deny the protests at a particular time of day as limiting free speech, it more resembles fascism or communism, this penchant for socialism steadily creeping into our lives. And is no different from Vladimir Putin excluding the word war from his national telecast in Russia and Ukraine. Those of you with the power to vote, please think seriously about this. You're in a position of privilege. Please do not abuse your power simply to appease those who might find the subject or timing of the protest distasteful. Mayor Wu is using her office of privilege to appease a whim. This is unjust and very surprising for a group who typically wants social justice. This is justice for some, but not justice for all, which is explicitly stated in our Pledge of Allegiance. To address the comment that this degree of protest hasn't been seen before, please consider what these protests are in opposition to. Their repetitive nature shows actions, masking children, showing papers, etc. That is what this is about. These protesters are humanitarians to the core. Their protests have nothing to do with gender or color. Those who say this are missing the major point of the protests. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I think next is Evan George, if he is here.
I see him here, so I think he's.
Yeah, I see him here as well. And Candace, if you can make sure that we have just the panelists and the person who's speaking still on this screen. Mr. George, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
My name is Evan George. I'm here as a Dorchester resident and put in a little bit of an uncomfortable situation in that I have nothing but contempt for this particular political organization and a great deal of sympathy for both the mayor's family and for the neighborhood, which is why first I'd like to express, I hope that they start to enforce the existing noise ordinance that is already on the books. And I kind of question why was this body allowed to violate it for weeks on end without any consequences. But still, I am here to speak against this measure because of many of the
Excuse me, Evan George, because we weren't violating the noise ordinance. We weren't violating any ordinances. As I said extensively yesterday, we never violated any laws or ordinances. We were 100% law-abiding, peaceful protesters. And that's why the police never took any action against us until this ordinance passed and an enemies hit list went out and the police started fucking relentlessly targeting us. So, yeah, Evan George does not like the anti-vaxxers. Evan George loved Michelle Wu at this point in time. I'm not sure that he still does because a lot of people that loved her 2 years ago no longer do. But I'm pretty sure he worked on her campaign. I think he works on a lot of Democrats' campaigns. He does like a podcast and local Boston news reporting. And this is somebody who is like a wicked hater of us, lover of Michelle Wu, and he understands the problems with the ordinance. So I love his testimony.
reasons expressed, what ultimately this is about, and I think everyone here in good faith can admit, is that this is a particular politician who has a problem, and the precedent of a politician to restrict what protests do they accept and which ones do they not, will ultimately just lead us to a place where all protests will not be allowed, except for the ones that, again, benefit the people who are already in power. I have participated in dozens, if not hundreds of protests, sometimes at public institutions, but also in private residences. And you hope that the cause that you have is just, and you hope that the tactics that you are using meet that goal. Now, do I think that this political organization's cause is just? Absolutely not. Do I think that their current tactics of this early morning protest meet their goals? It absolutely does not. However, do I want any government and being this legislative body to make that determination? Ultimately, absolutely not. And there's never been an ordinance against a particular method of protest in history, which is not going to be used against the poor, against people of color, against people with legitimate concerns, both for their lives and for their civil liberties. But again, that is not a determination
With
that this
legitimate
body
concerns.
can or
That's
should
what
make.
fucking gets
So again,
me. I'm sorry. I can back it up a second, but that's what fucking gets me every single time is when they talk about our process as not being legitimate. He says with legitimate concerns. Like, you don't get to delegitimize my concerns just because you disagree. My concerns are just as legitimate as anybody else's concerns who feels passionate enough about them to get in the street and start yelling about it. So, like, shut up. Like, they don't have legitimate concerns because I disagree with their concerns, because I choose not to look into all of the strange coincidences that happen with vaccines and, support the medical industry that literally profits from us being sick. Okay, so our concerns aren't legitimate. Whatever.
now, do I think that this political organization's cause is just? Absolutely not. Do I think that their current tactics of this early morning protest meet their goals? It absolutely does not. However, do I want any government and being this legislative body to make that determination? Ultimately, absolutely not. And there has never been an ordinance against a particular method of protest in history, which is not going to be used against the poor, against people of color, against people with legitimate concerns, both for their lives and for their civil liberties. But again, that is not a determination that this body can or should make. So again, I encourage people to vote against this measure, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's another excellent right there, the timer. Is James Levitt here? James Levitt. Melissa Terra. Joan Eastman. Carolyn Malloy. Robert Burke.
Yes, I'm here. Joan Eastman is here.
Yes, Joan. Thank you. So the floor is yours, Joan.
Thank you very much. I really urge the Boston City Council to oppose this ordinance. I have been listening with great interest, and I have to take exception to several things that have been presented here. Please take into account the purpose of these protests, which is to oppose government overreach. The answer to government overreach is not more government overreach, which is exactly what this ordinance is. I have very little sympathy for somebody who's claiming that she's being targeted. Has Sergeant Shana Cantone not been targeted for standing up for freedom, for standing up against unlawful mandates and restrictions in the city of Boston? President Flynn mentioned that he wondered what the cost is for law enforcement at these protests. I wonder what the cost is for this hearing about this ordinance, which is unlawful and custom tailored and extremely entitled and privileged on her behalf. No other mayor has taken actions as she is taking. We have never lived in times like these. This is kind of like the wild, wild west. Wouldn't time and money be better spent in an ordinance on how to bring the two sides together to discuss issues at hand? Why are people being denied their right? They get louder because they're not being heard, and silencing them further, limiting their ability to be heard, to express their position, is not a way to solve the problem. It adds to the problem. I also take exception to the fact that you, as the chair of these hearings, have already stated that you're in favor of this ordinance at a public hearing before even hearing from the public. You are our public servants. What's happening here on all levels is unlawful, and that's why people are speaking out against it. and they're not being heard. We need to bring people together as opposed to continuing to silence them. And I would urge you all to oppose this unlawful ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Next, we have, let me see here where we are. We just finished with Joan Eastman. Carolyn Malloy, if you are here.
No shows.
Mauricio
It's very
Himosia.
annoying.
Zachary Herbert. I see, actually, Candace, if you can promote Mauricio, I see him in the attendees list.
Mr. Chair, he has been promoted. I think it just takes a second for them to unmute.
Okay, so then we'll build in a pause there.
And Councilor Arroyo, I also see Rob Burke has his hand up in the attendees list. Yeah, I believe you called his name.
Yeah, so we'll do them one at a time. Mauricio comes before Rob, because I think they've already popped them in to the groups to start. Does he have to accept is he on, Candace, is he on the way to speak? Is there?
So, Mr. Chair, when we do promote someone to panelist, they do have to accept the request, but he did move over and it looks like he left once we moved him over.
Got
You
it.
have
Okay,
to go
if you can
through
bring
all
up
this
Rob
when
Burke.
you do hearings in person.
Mr. Burke has been promoted.
Thank you.
I need a
Mr.
soundboard.
Burke, the floor is yours when you are ready to begin.
Good morning.
Mr. Burke. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning. How are you? And all the panelists. I want to correct the record with who these people are. I've been with these people as a videographer since May 28th. This is not a special thing for Mayor Wu. These ladies are moms with kids. They're not political people. They don't really know each other. They're not tied in by any gang, group, or any organization. They came together because they're afraid of their children getting hurt by an unproven serum. It's simple to find out who these people are if Mayor Wu would talk to them. I state 126 years ago, our great orator, and everybody loves to quote this guy, Frederick Douglass. Let me quote this. He delivered one of his finest speeches, a plea for free speech in Boston. That's 162 years ago. And in less than maybe more than 100 days, Wu was trying to silence us. In it, he boldness where the right to utter one's thoughts and opinions have ceased to exist. Folks, if you're listening to me, if these are your wives, you'd cheer for them. If these are your sisters, you would cheer for them. And if these were your daughters, you would cheer for them. It's about the freedom of speech. And to have Mayor Wu try to do the following thing, take it away, that would destroy Boston because it is the cradle of liberty. You have 37 locations of historical places. If this gets out that she is anti-American, that's bad news. I'm out there every single day, and I challenge any city councilor to say these things bad about these. I have the video, and if I can prove that that's not true, you should all resign. And I thank you for your time. And you know free speech when you hear it. Have a wonderful day, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Is Mauricio back?
Mr. Chair, I have just promoted him to panelist.
Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Mauricio Hermosilla, Hispanic American. I would like to let you know I'm good, Ricardo. Please listen to my concerns. I think that it's a very underhanded tactic to label my freedom-loving friends as racist. I know many of these people, and their intentions are all about freedom, about protecting the freedom of this country. So the reason there is urgency in my voice and in my freedom-loving patriots is because we're being relegated. We're being marginalized. Karina tried to speak, and you censored her and told her that she has no right to say that Michelle Wu is a child abuser. She wasn't even really finished talking, and you cut her off. Yeah, 2 minutes, but do you see the urgency of what I'm trying to say? We need to speak. We need to be at your face, sir. We need to look into your eyes and have a conversation with you and the child abuser, Michelle Wu. So as a Hispanic, I take great offense.
I'm just going to have to do it to you as well, because just to be clear, there's only two things I'm asking folks to know. That's just what it is. It's not, I'm not trying to silence anybody. This is publicly aired. Folks get to see this. So the only thing we ask for is no profanity and no personal attacks. The rest of it is frankly okay, whether I agree with it or not. And so, just to be clear on what that is Zachary Herbert here?
That's such bullshit. There was no profanity in what he was saying. There was no profanity in what Karina was saying. Saying child abuser is not profanity. Child abuse, those words are not profanity. Like, they're calling it what it is, and he's censoring them. I mean, yeah, sure, I'm glad he's not a city councilor anymore, but his replacement is no better. And the city council is even more progressive than it was a year ago. So it's just like, come on. I don't understand how anybody can support people like this. If they're censoring one group of people today, they will censor a different group of people tomorrow. Like, they're going to come for you at some point. Like, why support people like this? Why? No profanity. First of all, free speech means that I can say whatever the fuck I want to say. And none of these people have spoken with any profanity. You just don't like what they're saying, so you're censoring them.
Is Stephanie Quirk here?
Stephanie Quirk is here.
Perfect. Stephanie, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to state for the record again that I am opposed to this ordinance. Obviously, Mayor Wu is the one who has filed for this ordinance, and it's unfortunate that I think she's filed it because she apparently doesn't want to face her constituents. She's refused to engage or speak with constituents, like Shannon Llewellyn repeatedly. She's sort of avoided them and just refuses to engage. So at some point, constituents have to figure out how to make their voices heard. I personally have been at the State House for more than 2 years, pretty consistently. So anytime that there's some sort of ordinance being proposed to where there's a limitation on when or where free speech can happen, I mean, that has to be sort of a signal for this isn't right. We need to look at this. There can't be limitations on it. Based on our Constitution, there's no ordinance that could potentially be put into place that would be lawful, that would allow this. There's no reason why Mayor Wu should be ignoring constituents. She should be talking with them. And apparently this is the only way that, constituents can get through to her. So I just want to say that I do appreciate some of the councilors' comments about, this ordinance. It's not content or group neutral. It's really targeted, and constituents cannot be targeted with ordinances like this. That's absolutely unlawful. And certainly I would hope that there would be a lawsuit coming if this did pass through. But I would urge all the councilors to really look at this and see how it negatively affects the public. Our voices need to be heard. We can't be shut out of the State House, and we can't be ignored on the streets either when we're shut out of the State House. So I would urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And just so I can check really quickly, just to make sure we're still on live streaming. I saw that there was a complaint a little bit ago that the live stream might have cut out. I just want confirmation that the live stream is still going. Candace.
Mr. Chair, we're taking a look now.
Thank you.
The live stream is currently working.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I need to know. Thank you. Appreciate you. I know you're juggling a lot. Danielle Summer, I believe. And please correct me if I pronounced that last name incorrectly.
That's right.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Okay. So I'm surprised to be, I guess democracy is working. So I'm surprised to be in agreement with some of the folks that have spoken. My main concern is that we're taking a situation that's happening right now and creating an ordinance that will live beyond Mayor Wu. And I sympathize. Like, I've seen people have sent me pictures of signs that have been there. I've heard people talk about personal attacks, so I believe that that's real. But I am concerned that Black and brown protesters who use protest to voice their issues will also be targeted, and it won't be fair. I'm concerned that the noise ordinances haven't been used yet, and that seems like a potential effective measure to address what's happening now. I certainly am somebody who has used protest. I believe in the First Amendment, and so I would strongly suggest that this be looked at much more carefully. And in its current state, it just feels very broad. I could be wrong, but it looks like even like if you're out there holding signs, you could probably be targeted with the ordinance. So, and if that's the case, I would definitely want it to be not voted for, be voted down. And that can be the end of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Summer. Is Amelia Bai there? And just again, just as a reminder for attendees who would like to testify, if you do not have your name written out the way in which you signed up to testify, you will not be called on. So no one name onlys, no just your initials. We need the name you signed up to speak on. Hold on, my last public commenter did a great job on time. To make sure that you have your name fully spelled out so that we can do that and call on you at the appropriate time. So please have both names ready to go. Alex Stein.
Guys, so let me
Instagram. It's my Instagram friend.
Yes.
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. I appreciate your work. It's usually hilarious. Thank you. I do appreciate.
Let me talk.
I do appreciate you. Next, whoever is next. And by the way, if you haven't seen Alex Stein, he's got an Instagram account. He does public commentary all over the country. It's sometimes quite hilarious. But unfortunately for Alex Stein, I have seen his work, and I won't be featured on his Instagram account today. Neither will the city council. But I appreciate Alex Stein. he is generally can be funny at times.
Which is funny because then after that he was featured on Alex Stein's Instagram. I think I'm gonna post that later just for laughs. But I talked to Alex Stein after the fact, and he said that he would be back at some point, and then he never came back. Maybe we'll get him back again sometime in the future. But yes. Once again, censoring people when you have a public hearing. You have no right or reason to censor people, especially just because you know who they are and you don't want to hear what they have to say. Alex Stein is a member of the public. He should have been given his 2 minutes just like everybody else. I know. And then I actually took a screen recording of that part because obviously Alex Stein got kicked out after, and I sent it to him so that he could post Ricardo Arroyo and put him on blast on his Instagram. I wanted to say something else too about somebody's testimony, but I don't remember. I guess I'll just keep going.
Is Miss? I'm not gonna do a good job with this last name. Is it Reef Rife? DB Rife or Reef?
Yes, it's Reef.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to the chair. Thank you to all the city councilors for their privilege to testify at this hearing. I just want to put a headline out, and it's this. I believe in public protest. I protested against the Vietnam War. I protested against building of a nuclear power plant, which we lost.
Now I remember what
protested.
I wanted to say.
Mayor Menino wanted to close.
She's about to hit it again. Like I said yesterday, like I will keep saying, if Michelle Wu, she's a lawyer, I believe, right? Isn't she? She has a good education and understanding on law. Okay. So she knows what would and wouldn't be considered harassment in legal terms, right? So all of these people saying this isn't protesting, this is harassment and threatening and going after her family, blah, 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 blah. No. If Michelle Wu felt like she was being harassed or threatened, she could have taken her ass down to E5 and filed a police report and gone to the courthouse and filed for harassment prevention order. She, from the very beginning, had all of our names, addresses, information, whatever, because they've been keeping data on us since the beginning and compiling data and building databases on us as if we're some fucking gang or something. Like, most of us didn't even know each other before we started protesting her. Okay. And so they've been keeping data on us, surveilling us, watching us, whatever. So they gone to court and tried to get her attention order on any single one of us. And she didn't do that because there were no grounds for a harassment prevention order because nobody was harassing her. We were peacefully protesting her. Nobody was threatening her or her family, ever. Not once. Nobody threatened her, ever. We were harassed and intimidated by her husband, Connor Powarski, and some of the city workers that travel around in her shadow, like the Boston EMS chief, Hooley, who was taking pictures of a protester's child in a carriage, and her police dignitary team, who are, extra violent and handsy with people, specifically Carrie Chin, the Asian officer who's always with her, who has manhandled women at protests and actually pushed women to the ground out in front of Michelle Wu's house. The only people that have ever turned any protests into violence anywhere that we've ever been are the police. The police are the violent ones. The police are the ones who escalate things. and more specifically her dignitary team, which she shouldn't even have because she's not royalty. She's an elected official. When you are honestly elected to represent people, you typically don't have to walk around with protection because the people elected you. Right. But yeah, so we can listen to what this lady has to say about how this is harassment and threatening when that's not at all what it is.
And a library, and we won. So that's my stance. Fast forward to today. About 8 years ago, I had a catastrophic accident and have had 8 surgeries since. Actually, I want to put on my video, sorry. I had the accident when I was shopping to have a meet and greet for then City Councilor Ayan Presley. If there were loud noises outside my home at 7 o'clock today, it would seriously affect my health and well-being because given what's happened these years, I just can't be woken up at that time. And then the very last thing I want to say is no,
I think she's suffering from a bad connection. We can try and bring her back so that she can say whatever it was she was trying to say. I see Kevin Mackey is here. You are next on the list. Kevin Mackey.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We literally could have gained a whole
Hi.
hour.
My name's Kevin Mackey. I've taken a look at this proposed ordinance, and quite simply, this is a sheep in wolf's clothing here. This is purporting to be defensive and protective of people's safety in their home as far as targeted protests, but this is actually an attack. It's a targeted deprivation of rights of the protesters. It really doesn't matter how narrowly tailored you make it. That's missing the point entirely. The point is that no governmental body has the right to regulate First Amendment rights of protests and standouts. We all know what this is really about. This is about the protests at Mayor Wu's house. And quite frankly, if, it's, as a lot of other people have said, criticism is part and parcel with being a public official. And if you don't have the stones to tolerate that, then I question your credibility in being able to hold that position. The other thing is, there's a very simple answer to this dilemma here. There's an invention called earplugs that people can, they're little foam things that you can roll up and put in your ears. And that's the adult way to handle it, and not trying to pass legislation that robs people of their rights. And just starting the precedent with something like this is a very slippery slope. Also, I do want to support what Karina and Mauricio said, and any mayor that supports masking of kids is.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. I believe we have, if Dolores is back and or Laurel Radwin, or if you can bring them both up.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Dolores McGee.
Hi there. Good afternoon. I would like to begin my testimony by professing my faith in Jesus Christ and by asking him to bless my words and all who hear them. Before I offer my position on Mayor Wu's proposed ordinance regarding targeted residential picketing, I would like to say that this hearing should absolutely be held in person. There is no emergency preventing us from doing so, which makes the already easily exploitable provision even more transparently misused against the very people it purports to protect. There are many ways in which virtual hearings restrict full participation and even violate citizens' right to free speech. We've seen evidence of this morning already. From glitchy technology to restrictive participant limits and muting, virtual meetings will never offer the freedom of expression that in-person meetings do. True democracy is often organic and dependent upon the interaction among people, sharing physical space, seeing each other in their fullness, and engaging in the innately intangible elements of humanity that screens will never replicate. As with virtual hearings, Mayor Wu's proposed ordinance regarding targeted residential picketing is restrictive to free speech and violates citizens' First Amendment right. Mayor Wu is a public figure, which subjects her to the lawfully expressed opinions and voices of the public. The mere proposal of this ordinance reveals an abuse of power on Mayor Wu's part. It is exceedingly and transparently self-serving. There will always be emotional and subjective angles one can cite to justify such restrictions: neighbors, veterans, children, etc. However, at the end of the day, Americans' right to free speech must be protected at all costs. Attempting to justify these restrictions as quote unquote reasonable is entirely subjective and can too easily be used to suppress and silence individuals and or groups of citizens. Please consider the dangerous, long-lasting implications of that possibility. I would like to...
And just a reminder for folks, if you have more to say than your 2 minutes allows, please do email it and we will put it on the record. Thank you for everybody who's being patient with their chance to share. I'm trying to make sure we stick to 2 minutes so that we can get through everybody. There's still a considerably long list of folks waiting to speak. Lori Radwin.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, Councilor Arroyo and the other councilors for being here. I also want to thank Christine O'Donnell and Candace Morales. This must be quite the day at work for them. Decibels, the neighbors have decibel meters. And in fact, the noise ordinance is being violated. And people called 311 a number of times. I was a little surprised by the report of the number of calls. We were also instructed at a community meeting to call the police and let them know about the complaint of the noise. So their count of the calls would be particularly informative. There is a noise ordinance, and if it were equally implemented, I wonder about the necessity of this ordinance. And so I'm going to press for an equal enforcement of the noise ordinance for anybody who is making that kind of noise. And that is the end of my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Radwin.
Mr. Chair, you are muted.
You're on mute, Ricardo.
Thank you. Thank you. It's only happened twice so far, so we're good on that. Thank you, Ms. Radwin, for staying within time so that we can give other folks a chance to speak. Who is next on the list? Candace.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Are we going back to DB Wright?
I don't see her. If she's here, yes.
It looks like we're just waiting for her to accept our promotion.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming back to me. I don't know why my feed cut out, but it did. I actually was just about finished. I'll just say quickly again, I believe in public protest, but anytime a child asks a mother, do you know it's Hitler's birthday today too? That's not public protest. That is abuse. And I agree with the ordinance. I urge city councilors to pass it, knowing that I believe in public protest and I believe in making differences between what is and what isn't. Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, everybody.
So, does that mean like a good portion of the country is abusing Donald Trump? Like I can't even take people like this serious. It doesn't make sense. So you're saying that protesters abused Michelle Wu's child because they called her Hitler? What? Shut up, lady. Ugh, where's the tab? Hold on, sorry. Ugh, so stupid.
Thank you. Next up is Joseph Hawkins.
I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it greatly. I thank everyone for their time and energy they're putting into this. I just want to hit on a couple of things because I think it's very detrimental to what everyone's saying here. The reason for docket 312 comes from a byproduct of policy. And I have a great issue that many of the counselors have not even brought up why this bill is being presented today. I think it's been a resounding conversation today from many in the community that there's an issue for all this. And to say that promoting this would, well, let me just start here. My first thought would be, if there is a sound problem, start enforcing it. There's no reason for this. Just let's use some common sense and logically think about this. If there's a sound problem, enforce it. Taking away or limiting the free exercise of protest, that's always a problem. Any freedom you take away is a freedom we won't get back. And that's true. We've seen it time and time and again. So we have evidence on our side. So to try to take more freedom away from the people is going to be very detrimental. And everyone that's listening and in tune with this, they're going to remember who voted for what. They're going to be mindful. And if you think this won't come back to the council at some point, it's going to. It truly will. So it all comes around. You reap what you sow. I'm in leadership. And when you're in leadership, you're open to, and I'll be really quick with this.
Yeah,
you're in leadership, you have to be open for criticism. And if you can't take the criticism, you shouldn't be in leadership. And so let me encourage you, just keep everything in context, take criticism, talk with the people, and maybe talking with the people would alleviate the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. It looks like up next is Diana Ploss.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I won't take too much time. I want to let people know that Mayor Wu is not the only politician in Massachusetts who wants to put forth something like this. Take a look at Bill HD 4583. This was presented by Representative Stephen S. Howitt. He's a Republican out of Seekonk. He actually wants to limit people's ability to protest at a politician's house. They have to stay 100 yards away. So this is not just a Mayor Wu issue. This is actually something else that is coming down the pike. So pay attention to that. Two more things. This is tyranny and this is communism, and no justice, no peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ploss. I can't, who is next on the list? The list keeps growing. I appreciate that folks are signing up to speak, and I appreciate that folks are being patient.
Hey, I just want to say I'm neighbors with Michelle Wu, and these protests are clearly.
I would ask central staff not to bring folks in until they're called. Thank you. Who is next? Is it Lauren Durant? Is it Primo Stone?
Mr. Chair, they are not present.
Okay, looks like we've reached the end of our public comment period with folks who are actually here. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for listening throughout this process. Look forward to hearing folks as this goes forward. This will be going to a working session and will not be up for a vote this week. I look forward to everybody for being here, who is here working on this with us together. Thank you, everybody. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricardo.
So yeah, basically there were like a whole bunch of people that signed up to give testimony who were not brought into the hearing, who did not get to speak at the hearing, who got muted or booted. And that's what happens in virtual hearings, and that's why we should not be allowing them. But yeah, so that was the hearing that got zero consideration when making the decision to pass the ordinance. And tomorrow, I think I'll be back to go over the working session, which will probably also span over a couple of days because that one's like 3 hours long. And I'll go over the report from the committee chair, Ricardo Arroyo, where he gives his basically like summary or synopsis of the hearing and the working session and all of the factors that went into the deliberation of this legislation. And I'll go over that too. It's important that people see these things, even though it is from 2 years ago. A couple people like messaged me and thought that this was something recent or current that I was showing. Confused as to why Ricardo Arroyo is doing anything with the city council, but I think it's important to rehash what happened 2 years ago, to put more eyes on it. People who maybe weren't paying attention 2 years ago, or weren't around 2 years ago, or weren't involved 2 years ago. It's good to look at how these processes take place, because to a lot of us, going to give a public testimony, hearings, public meetings, and all of that is very new. And so I think it's very helpful to know when you're walking into these things that, whatever type of testimony you're going to give, I like to try to direct my testimony toward the people in the room, the members of the public, rather than the body that is holding the proceeding, because they don't care and they're not listening. And what we're saying has no effect on what's going to happen. They're going to go through with what they want to go through with, regardless of what we say. So I like to think of it as, how can I be the most impactful to the other people, to the people that are listening? And yeah, we are still in court. We have court next week and then hopefully trial next month for a disturbing the peace charge for protesting peacefully in front of Michelle Wu's house. So, yeah, our judge denied our motion for selective prosecution last week. And that is what kind of prompted me to start looking through all of this ordinance stuff all over again and showing it to people. I think it's really important that people pay attention to this stuff. So I'm going to get off here now. I have some other work to do, and I will hopefully be back tomorrow with the working session. So thanks for watching. Again, I wasn't streaming on Facebook today. For some reason, the stream wouldn't connect me to Facebook. So if you could please post this on your Facebooks, repost and share on Twitter, and interact, comment, react, share from YouTube and Rumble, and subscribe to those channels. People's Press Media. Go to boston2boston.com to sign up for email updates, and to find out more of what we've been doing over the past couple of years and what we plan to do in the years coming. And again, I am only me working on all this content, so I'm sorry if it takes me a while to get content up and to update the website and to do these videos and whatnot. I have no idea what I'm doing. Video editing is not easy, and coming up with content and the right way to present it is also not easy. So please be patient with me. I'm trying, I'm learning, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching.